Hurricane season 2009, and the Weather Channel is the hurricane authority. Now, your local on the 8s.
Here's our local Doppler radar. For tonight, clear to partly cloudy, low 47, winds south-southeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour. And on Saturday, sunshine, high 73, winds southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. The week ahead.
And good afternoon, everyone. I'm meteorologist Mike Bettis with Vortex 2. We are right now in southeastern Wyoming, in Goshen County, Wyoming, where a tornado warning has been issued. If you look behind me here, what you can see is a large rotating supercell thunderstorm with a lowering wall cloud. There are some very interesting features within this particular section of the storm. Want to bring in our tornado expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, for some instant analysis. Dr. Forbes, one thing that we're noticing, especially to the left of the lowering section of this cloud, is what looks to be a little bit of an updraft and what looks to be some rotation as well. Can you see from these pictures where exactly a tornado or funnel could develop?
Well, it's as you say. Can we put his picture in my telestrator, and I'll do a little drawing on it. Right now we're showing the storm on radar here, and you can see it has formed an extremely well-defined hook echo now with a little ball down toward the south side. So the tendency will be that's where the tornado will form. Now let's take a look at his picture if we could, and in that case let's take a look at the. There we go. So here is what we're seeing. We're seeing some inflow that comes into this little tail end here, seeing a little bit of rain. So I would expect right about in this location could be some place where I would expect the tornado to possibly drop down. But certainly it's within this portion of the cloud. That's where the rotating updraft comes in and spirals its way up in this rotating thunderstorm. You can also see some little scud elements here. It's rising. There's this broad area of ascent taking place right in here. A little bit of rain. This may be part of what we call the rear flanked downdraft, the rain wrapping around, with the main body of the rain being around here. So there's some rain cooled air wrapping around a little bit in that hook, and then the warm air is coming in and up, and then it turns with height. There's a good amount of turning with height today, and that's what's allowing these storms to rotate. So an exciting prospects here for the Vortex 2 team with a rotating wall cloud hanging down. See, that almost looks like a birthday cake. And Mike, you asked a few minutes ago if the storm would turn to the right, and it has indeed turned about 10 degrees more to the right. It's heading just slightly south of east now.
Well, one good thing about it, it's a relatively slow speed, so if we head south, we've got a paved road here. I think we could probably get ahead of it. One thing, though, Dr. Forbes, that I have been noticing, really following now the left-hand side of this wall cloud, because from our vantage point here, we're still several miles away. It does look like, I mean, it's hard for me to tell visually exactly what's going on here, but I can, from my naked eyes, I can detect a little bit of rotation within this. Is there anything that you can see on radar that would indicate that we potentially have any type of rotation combined with this visual?
Yeah, Mike is probably looking at this little formation that's off here to the left, and that's certainly a possibility. Let's take a look at our radar, our 3D radar now, and see what that takes a look at. So certainly a possibility here. This could be a tornado that's beginning to form off to the left. We could have something come down also right out of the wall cloud. Do we have our 3D radar available? Well, certainly, Mike, we're keeping an eye on that lobe off to the left of the wall cloud as well as underneath the wall cloud.
Dr. Forbes, could we be potentially looking at a wedge tornado developing here off to the left? Because it's hard. I mean, it doesn't have that classic cone shape to it right now, but it definitely looks like there's now a different appendage to the main section of the lowering wall cloud.
Yeah, certainly, and it does appear that there's trying to be some kind of a little, potentially a little funnel protruding out of that. Of course, sometimes these are red herrings, that they're just little elements. I think mostly what we're seeing here is elements of ascent, but certainly that's a very active area. The rain-cooled air is wrapping around behind the storm and then circulating forward, and I think this low-hanging is right on the edge of that. So there's ascent taking place there. There's certainly some rotation, and it's not out of the question a tornado could form there or over closer to the edge of this wall cloud. I'd still be on the lookout for one of these little protuberances coming right down. Now there's something hanging a little bit lower down out of this near the center of that wall cloud, so that's certainly a good candidate as well.
Dr. Forbes, when I listen to the scanner, I hear Dr. Wormer saying this is what they've been looking for. This one is getting even more intense. Probes have been deployed, stick nets have been deployed, and when the radars need to scan on this, what is the advantage to them being screened left on this? So if you're looking at your TV right now, it'd be off to your left. What is the advantage to the radars being on the south and southeastern side of this particular storm?
Well, the thing you want to have not happen is to get the radars in the hail, and so with the storm moving east, you want to keep the radars to the south. One of them a little bit to the southwest, one to the southeast. That gives you two different vantage points. The individual single Doppler radar can only measure the flow directly toward and away from the radar, and so by having two of them spaced apart, you can get the full three-dimensional measurement of the wind instead of just the in and out component. And they'll merge those together with the computer analyses that they have. Here you're seeing a little bit more change of structure now to that low-hanging portion. It's looking like it's turning like this. Another little spot trying to come down. Often it's these areas right at the edges of the rain shafts where tornadoes will come down. So I'm still continuing to monitor two areas here underneath Mike's cloud for that possibility of a tornado.
All right, let's show everyone at home what exactly Vortex 2 will be doing on this particular storm that has a tornado warning here in Goshen County, Wyoming. If you look at the shaded area in yellow on this graphic, that is the supercell itself, and where you see that little fish hook at the bottom of your screen there, that's where you'll end up seeing the tornado. So if you look at the deployment here, as Dr. Forbes was mentioning, a lot of the radars are going to be on generally the eastern or the southern side of it to try to avoid any precipitation, because if they're trying to measure velocities, the last thing they want to do is scan into any rain or scan into any hail. If you also look at what looks to be like camera tripods, those are stick nets, and they want to deploy throughout the system and especially deploy in front of it and let it come towards them. So if the storm motion here is, okay, take a look here. Look at what we've got now. Now it looks like we've got a lowering funnel right now. Check this out, Dr. Forbes. This is coming right down in the middle of the wall cloud. Looks like we've got a funnel at least developing potentially a tornado now.
Yes, indeed. Right there, just as I was saying, just to the edge of where the rain is, that's where the tornadoes like to form in this kind of a supercell thunderstorm. That's an interface between the updraft and the downdraft. So that's been the area where I've been watching for the rotation to develop, and it's certainly trying to do it at this time.
Dr. Forbes, from my vantage point here, Dr. Forbes, there's obvious rotation there. Yeah, there's obvious rotation from our distance here a couple of miles away.
Yeah, and we can see it in your video too, Mike. It's obviously rotating rather strongly counterclockwise here. So perhaps this right edge of that rotating portion, perhaps the left edge, perhaps the whole portion of that will turn into one wedge, huge wedge tornado. But certainly this is exactly, as you say, exactly the kind of supercell thunderstorm, exactly the kind of tornado environment for the formation of a tornado that Vortex 2 has been waiting to get.
Now, if I look just off to the right of that section, it looks to be lowering, Dr. Forbes. It looks to be, we've got some downdrafts here. We've got some large hail shafts or rain shafts. Is that also almost a classic setup for a supercell?
It absolutely is. We talk about and here's what Mike has been talking about, this dark shaft here, a sheet of rain or hail or a curtain of rain or hail coming down. Then there's off to the right probably some additional. So this is the area of where the rear flank downdraft wraps in. One of the hypotheses for Vortex 2 is that rain brings down with it some rain-cooled air that has been aloft and has stronger rotation aloft. When it gets down to the ground, it gets recirculated into the updraft, and much like a spinner spinning faster as you pull it inward, it takes that weaker rotation and makes it into a possible tornado. And you can see it is certainly trying to do that right in this area.
Dr. Forbes, when you look at the atmosphere that this particular storm is in, is it likely that this could be a long-lived supercell? What kind of atmosphere are we looking at here? Do we have the right shear? Do we have the right moisture for this thing to be long-lived?
You certainly do. In fact, you have one additional factor. This area has a cold front that's dropping down into the area, and so one thing that the previous Vortex project that 15 years ago found was that there's some enhancement of tornado potential when storms can run along boundaries, and so this one has a cold front dropping down as a possible a boundary that this storm could run east along. So it could indeed be a long-lived supercell, perhaps producing one or more tornadoes, or perhaps a long-lived tornado.
Dr. Forbes, from where we stand, it looks like it's almost coming directly towards us, or maybe a slight turn south of us. If we were to be on just the northern side of this, what kind of danger would we be in our particular location? Because now we're starting to see a lot more lightning on the northern side of this storm.
I'm sorry, Mike, repeat. I didn't hear your question.
I'm sorry, Dr. Forbes. This storm looks to be taking a turn right towards us, or maybe just slightly south of us. If it takes that slightly south turn and comes towards us, what danger will we be on the northern side of it? Because right now I'm starting to see more frequent cloud-to-ground lightning.
Well, certainly cloud-to-ground lightning. There appears to be a tremendous amount of precipitation immediately behind this wall cloud, so likely to be some hail coming across there, so you're likely to need to take a jog a couple of miles to the south. Beautiful structure here in the storm cloud. We're seeing over in this area a flanking line that is forming of clouds that are not nearly as tall, but then the main inflow coming into the storm in the wall cloud area, then leaning upward and to the right. Off in this area, you see the main body of rain from the thunderstorm. You see this little secondary area of rain and hail that's just to the rear of the wall cloud, and that's down near the hook echo of this spiraling supercell thunderstorm. So this again continues to be the area to monitor for the possible development of tornadoes. These areas are where rain-cooled air is being generated, and then some of that is revolving around behind that wall cloud and then coming forward. That area that you had been watching earlier with the little tail coming down and upward, that's kind of where that rear flank downdraft was spiraling along, and it was pushing up some of the air in the process.
Dr. Forbes, it looks like, and we're going to grab the camera here real quick and go handheld. It looks like it keeps funnels dropping down and dropping down, but nothing seems to want to sustain itself. Is this a process that happens with supercells, that it can go through that off and on funnel until it finally decides it wants to, in its mature stage, develop a tornado?
Yes, and in this case, I think what is perhaps happening is maybe the rear flank downdraft is a little cool. It's getting some heavy rain a little bit too close here to the wall cloud. And one of the hypotheses from Vortex 1 was that rain-cooled, too cold a downdraft makes it harder to get tornadoes because that colder air is dense and heavy. It's harder to pick it back up real quickly. But as you say, we keep trying to get tornadoes. We get a cone-shaped, wedge-shaped funnels hanging down. It's definitely doing it more now than we've seen before, trying to produce tornadoes.
Yeah, there you go, Dr. Forbes. That one looks more impressive than any one we've seen so far.
Yeah,
that funnel is coming down. Hard to tell if that's actually reaching the ground or not.
Yeah, especially with the rain curtains behind it there, it's hard to tell. What you would be looking for would be down near the ground, a little debris cloud kicking up. But with the rain in behind there, it's hard to get a clear gradient of what. Whoa, look at that one now. Nice little funnel cloud.
There we go. I think we've got something now, Dr. Forbes. We're very close. I think we're probably, it's hard to tell because of our vantage point here. We're several miles away. This entire storm is moving towards us. We've obviously got a funnel right now, the most impressive funnel of the supercell so far. It looks like a little rope thing, and then we go again. It teases, it wants to come down, and then it lifts right back up. As you were talking, it can be a process.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I believe you had a brief tornado occur right there. As you say, there was a little, very narrow little rope tornado that came down very briefly. It certainly looked to me like that had rotation, had a little bit of dust that got picked up at the ground.
Dr. Forbes, I want to give everyone kind of at home a vantage point of what we're looking at. We've been following this on the radar, and I want to show you here. This is the storm that we're following right here in Goshen County, and where you see the little truck in the spirals here, that's our exact location. So we think we've put ourselves in a position where the storm is coming towards us, but if it's any more of a right turner and goes south, it may end up being farther south of us, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it does certainly seem as if it may be taking a little bit of a right turn. It's going to get very close to you. It's amazing how fast these evolve, because even in that minute, you see the rain shafts have lessened a little bit. We still continue to have that little bump that's coming down. And so now with those rain and hail shafts lessening a little bit, I wonder if a tornado will be able to pop down sort of in this weaker precipitation area. It's certainly trying.
Dr. Forbes, if I look off to the left of where we've been watching the funnel, what exactly is taking place here south side of the funnel over here? It just looks like debris clouds or something to me.
I think that's a flanking line. I think what's happened, Mike, is that rear flank downdraft has, in behind the main wall cloud, has pushed southbound about this far, and so what we're getting is some of the warm air being lifted up. In other words, the rain-cooled air comes in across here, and some of that warm air is being lifted up over top of that. So that's the southernmost extreme of the rear flank downdraft, and then it's spiraling forward a little bit off to the right and trying to re-enter the wall cloud. And that process of recirculation of that rear flank downdraft is a key theory to Vortex 2 of how the tornado forms in what's obviously already a storm that's rotating aloft, but how does it get that rotation right at the ground? How does it make a tornado? And that's what the atmosphere is trying to show us right now, right in front of our very eyes. This, though, appears to be a little bit of what we call an HP supercell, a high precipitation supercell. We do not like to see that much rain right by the wall cloud. We'd sooner have it ending right here instead of right immediately in proximity to the wall cloud.
Dr. Forbes, when I look at the area that we've been looking for the funnel, if I look just to the right, this looks to be the nearest part of the storm to me. There's obvious spin here. There's obvious cyclonic rotation. Is there a possibility that ahead of that storm we could see another funnel? Is this not an area that we would watch for a tornado to form?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. As this rear flank downdraft pushes forward, it puts out a little gust front, and there can sometimes be little brief tornadoes, sort of shaped like narrow water spots, like elephant trunk shapes.
Well, there we go, Dr. Forbes. There we go. I think we've got the tornado
there it is.
now.
There's a tornado.
I think this is touching the ground now.
You have it. There it is. It's on.
There we go. We've got a
all the way to the
tornado.
ground.
This is Goshen County, Wyoming. There it is.
Vortex 2 has a tornado.
This is the first tornado that we have seen so far, folks, with Vortex 2. We've waited nearly a month. That is getting bigger now. That's it. Initially started as a rope tornado right in that wall cloud, has now developed what looks to be a fairly significant tornado on the ground from our vantage point. We're still several miles away from this storm as it pushes southeast through southeastern Wyoming. Right-turning storm that started out as a cluster, but right now what you're witnessing is a live tornado in Goshen County, Wyoming, as it heads south and eastbound. Dr. Forbes, when you look at what's happening right now, how difficult is it to determine how much precipitation we've got in the cone here, how much debris we've got? Because when I look at the topography here, when I look at the landscape, mostly farmland here, which is a very good thing.
Yes, absolutely. I don't see much that looks like debris. I think it's moist air and some dust. But obviously what you have, Mike, is pretty much a wedge tornado that is in progress there. It grew wide, much wider, just in seconds as we watched it. A good example of just how quickly a tornado can change. And
amazing, Dr. Forbes, as we were talking, because it looks like each time it gets more intense as each funnel wants to come down. It looks again like it may have lifted just a little bit again, but I'm wondering if now we're going through a process where it's really starting to mature now, and at some point we're going to get a fairly significant tornado that lasts for a while on the ground.
Yeah, well, at this point that funnel is so close to the ground, Mike, that I suspect that what is happening is that it has tornadic winds on the ground, but it may be moving over meadows with no dust and no debris to pick up. And so there now, obviously, it is back to the ground. So I believe you have a fairly wide tornado wind field on the ground at this time.
Dr. Forbes, some of the radars that want to sample this tornado, the W-band, especially the Ka-band radars, they want to scan very close to the ground. What is the advantage of scanning so close to the ground and not higher up through this tornado?
Well, some of the other radars will be scanning higher up. The critical areas, of course, where people get damaged, where buildings get damaged, are right down in those lowest 10, 20 feet above ground. And so that's a very critical area in the tornado. The flow comes in and then turns very rapidly upward. It's called a corner flow area, and that's where all the damage takes place, the winds turning from horizontal to vertical. Obviously, we have a tornado on the ground here now, beginning to perhaps pick up a little bit of debris there. That little protrusion came out the right side.
Dr. Forbes, what I've noticed, though, over the last, we've been on this for about 25 minutes or a half hour or so, I haven't noticed a significant advancement towards us with the tornado. I feel like we're at a very safe distance here, and has it slowed down at all?
I can't really answer that question. I've not been able to, I've been perched here at my telestation without able to really look at the radar, so it certainly was not moving too fast to begin with.
You were mentioning, though, that the forward speed was relatively slow, though. It was around 15 miles per hour. Once you start to see a funnel form, can a supercell itself almost remain stationary?
Yeah, certainly they can sometimes close themselves off, and perhaps even the tornado remains stationary, and then a new one leapfrog out ahead of it. So we're seeing a pretty well-defined little band of clouds here coming out now that may be a little bit of rain-cooled air that has pushed around the front side of that tornado and up to its north side and then wrapping in behind. Sometimes you can get another tornado, probably not this instant, but next 15 minutes or so, that will drop down in the updraft that gets triggered along that edge of the gust front that is wrapping around it. But this is a classic mature stage tornado right now with here, the clear skies, that's rain-cooled air wrapping around. It has provided the rotation for the updraft of this wedge-shaped tornado that is working its way across southeast Nebraska.
To review for everyone that's watching at home right now, we are in Goshen County, Wyoming, live with Vortex 2 as they have deployed on a supercell thunderstorm that's producing a tornado right now in open farmland in Goshen County, Wyoming. This is an ideal classic case that Vortex 2 has been looking for. They've deployed all of their radars, their probes, the stick nets, the meso nets are mobile, and they crisscross throughout this storm. It's a slow-moving classic storm that they're looking for because that was ideal for them. Low precipitation, especially on the south side, although we're now noticing a lot more in the way of rain, but the deployment should actually be perfect for them, certainly considering the topography that we're looking at here. Relatively flat and a visual that is miles. The radar signature is almost classic on this one. And Dr. Forbes, one of the teams that we haven't talked a lot about on Vortex 2 is photogrammetry. When they are looking at this storm, what are they looking for when they're visually inspecting this?
Well, what they will do is they'll photograph the storm from a couple of different locations and then be able to go back from the videos of that and track little elements of the motion, either of debris that they can see or the cloud, the funnel cloud itself, and they'll be able to triangulate and they'll know how far away the tornado is and can actually compute independently of the radar the speed of rotation about the outer edges, both the rotation and the upward motion in the outer edges of this tornado, which now is potentially getting what we call rain wrapped. It seems to be perhaps getting more and more enshrouded in curtains of rain.
Dr. Forbes, as we look at this storm, and now I can see as the outer bands of the supercell itself start to rotate, spiraling around us here, because I can now tell it's getting a lot closer to us. When I look at this storm and watch its movement toward us right now, it is getting closer. Is there going to be a point at which we're going to be in too much danger, and which way is going to be best for us to go? Should we go north, should we go south, or should we head maybe farther east?
Well, yes, definitely should go farther east. And answer to your question, the latest warning has come out, tornado warning now for Goshen and Laramie, parts of Goshen and Laramie counties, and they're indicating now the motion is toward the east at 25 miles per hour. So it has perhaps accelerated just a little bit now as that rain has come out and begun to push on it. So I would expect that what you would need to do would be to move east to keep ahead of it, perhaps move a little bit of southward to keep out of the hail. There's some hail probably right behind this tornado. Of course, you'll be staying ahead of that, but there's a big curtain of rain and probably hail that are just about 5 miles or so to the north of the track. So you certainly would not want to go any to the north. Go east to keep ahead of it and a little bit to the south.
Dr. Forbes, this is almost completely obscured. I can't even see the funnel anymore. It's completely obscured by rain. So now it becomes a very dangerous situation where you can't actually get a visual on where the vortex itself is.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't tell if the tornado is still in there. It probably is still in there, but it is, what also could be happening is that rain-cooled air may be choking it off. But it still seems as if there's some faint outline of a tornado in there, but you can see all these rain curtains on the edges where the rain is not so heavy and obscuring that that this tornado has gotten enshrouded in rain. The rear flank downdraft and its rain has wrapped around the west side, then the south side, and now it's gone all the way around to the east side of this tornado. And that's part of what is a classic evolution of these supercell tornadoes, big wedge tornadoes like the one, there it is. You can see it again, it's still there. There's the tornado. And the best thing for Vortex 2 standpoint is they've caught the whole evolution of this. They've caught it before it had a tornado. They've caught the rear flank downdraft. Now they've caught a massive, Mike, a massive wedge tornado is back in that, partly enshrouded in rain.
Dr. Forbes, we are several miles away from this tornado. To my fairly untrained eye, when it comes to visually inspecting tornado, it does look very significant. It looks very large. I know you've been basically watching the video the entire time. Is there any way to tell on radar potentially how large of a tornado physically we have in diameter?
I can probably at some point go quick and take a look at the radar, but I know we want the viewers to keep seeing the tornado. But just looking at this, I would certainly expect this tornado from visual appearance here to be a quarter-mile wide. This looks to be a very large tornado. If you're 2 miles away, this is a big tornado.
When I look at what could be in the potential path of this storm, Dr. Forbes, I see very little. What I do see, though, from here, between where we are and where the tornado is, I see a lot of high-tension power lines. So I suspect that wherever these lines go, we're going to see some power outages, and what's oftentimes described by storm chasers as spectacular are those flashes of power going out as the tornado actually passes over them.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're certainly going to want to be away from that power line that we just saw there. Oh, there's the high tension one. So several types of power lines.
Yeah, we're basically right under some, so we're probably not in that safe a spot to be as the tornado gets closer. We'll actually have to probably head at least south on this roadway because we're on a north-south road right now. But looking at this tornado, we watched, I believe, 3 funnels come down, then 1 tornado, little rope tornado come down, lift, and now we've got what looks to be, Dr. Forbes, a massive wedge tornado right now. And as you were alluding to, a classic sampling for Vortex 2. When I look at things like the probes, Dr. Forbes, these are the very low to the ground probes that they want to put directly in the path of the tornado. They don't sit more than about 3 feet off the ground. What is the advantage of getting data that is that close to the ground when a tornado passes over it?
Well, that's the Doppler radars themselves, because of obstructions, they typically can only see up to about 15 or perhaps more like 50 feet above ground. So about the only way that we get any measurements in those lowest 10 feet of the tornado is by having these surface measurements. The Doppler radar has to aim just a little bit above the ground to avoid all the ground clutter. And so the best measurements would be to have the pods or the stick nets measuring the winds in the tornado as it comes right over them.
Dr. Forbes, interesting that you mentioned that, because look who's just pulled up here. This is the team from Texas Tech. They're the ones with the stick nets. They're about to do a deployment right now. It looks like they're probably deploying in a north-south fashion here as the storm moves its way slightly south of east. And so what they're going to do with these probes is they're going to put them on the east side of the road here and away from the power lines. What they're going to do here is deploy. As they deploy, it takes them about 2 minutes or so. What they're doing is setting up the stick nets nets. They'll stake them into the ground. They've got a computer that'll measure all the data, wind speed. It'll measure barometric pressure. It'll measure temperature and humidity. And so what they're doing right now is deploying this stick net in anticipation that at least portions of this storm will come over them. When this is hooked up, they basically then hightail it out of here to stay safe and then come back and gather the data from this stick net. So what you're looking at right here is Tanya and Mike with the Texas Tech and University of Michigan stick net team. So they're hooking up as quickly as possible because what they do now is hopscotch, and they'll set up these in a line down this roadway in hopes that the tornado itself, or at least the outskirts of the tornado, will pass through several portions of their deployment here, Dr. Forbes.
Yeah, and I while you were showing that, I ran over and looked at the our 3D radar, and indeed that radar shows the rain area that's been hiding in behind the tornado there. It shows our Doppler radar shows a big wide donut, and then as we've been seeing, the tornado is right inside that donut. So the left and right sides of the donut correspond to the rain, and then the tornado is right in the middle of the donut. At some point, if it stops producing a tornado, we'll show some of that. But I know we want to see all of the ongoing excitement here by the Vortex 2 team. There it is. There's the little donut that I was talking about.
How many more deployments are you doing? Are you going south, Tanya?
Yes, we are going south. We have about 5 more left in our trailer.
They are going south, and what's the spacing?
The spacing is 2.5 miles.
2.5 miles separating each stick net as they'll head south now, Dr. Forbes, and probably a good plan because it looks like, at least on the radar, that it is now turning south, at least south of our location, and you can see what a visual right now on this tornado. I mean, it is amazing. We've got a large wedge tornado on the ground, and obviously the teams are hustling. They are running to get these things in place because what they want to do is get them down. They can measure the pre-storm environment, the storm environment itself, and maybe even the tornado, and then the post-storm environment. They are placing these about 2 miles apart, so they're racing now farther south. They've still got 5 to go. They've put more up the street farther north so they can get an entire picture of the storm. But right now, obviously, an incredible storm, Dr. Forbes. This has been on the ground for some time now, and a large wedge tornado, you say, probably has significant width to it.
Absolutely, and it's just a classic. You can see here a little band revolving around. That's the rear flank downdraft. The tornado precipitation behind it. It's very, very impressive from a storm perspective that this tornado can continue to be this large with that much rain very close to it. And so this is going to be an extremely interesting data set to help test some of those Vortex 2 hypotheses. And part of the critical information for that is going to be what's the temperature in that downdraft. So some of the stick nets that have been deployed a bit farther to the west, and now the ones that they're going to run over, will give that temperature of the downdraft. Was it just the right temperature? We've talked about it's like the 3 bears in the porridge. The downdraft can't be too cold, it can't be too warm, it has to be just right. Is that theory going to be verified in this data set?
When I look at, I see off just to the left of this tornado, Dr. Forbes, which looks to be some structures, potentially some farmhouses here. Certainly worried about what can happen with that, especially if it comes even more slightly south. But ideally, this is perfect. This is an unpopulated area. It's very flat terrain, and this funnel is just, this tornado itself is truly incredible. And from our vantage point now, as it gets closer, you can even see the rotation of the rain bands outside of the tornado itself. This is a very, very powerful storm.
Yes, indeed it is. This supercell, you can just see the spiraling hook shape on radar. Mike was pointing at that little farmstead there. It is going to be safe as far as I can tell from the tornado. It will probably get some gusty winds and some hail, but probably not worse than they've experienced in the past. And that's certainly a good thing. This, as you say, is exactly what Vortex 2 wants. Measure tornadoes without them being destructive tornadoes.
I'm starting to get a little bit worried now, Dr. Forbes, that we may end up being a little bit too close to this right now, and lightning is getting much closer to us to the north side of this storm. This is obviously extraordinarily impressive right now. You're looking at a live tornado, folks. If you're just now joining us, you're looking at a live tornado in Goshen County, Wyoming. It is headed southeast at about 25 miles per hour. We are live with Vortex 2, large research program, the largest research project in history, and they are sampling this tornado as we speak. This tornado has been on the ground for maybe roughly 25 minutes or so. At one point, a very large wedge tornado, but now Dr. Forbes taking more of a rope shape, and right in the middle of that, it's wider than it is toward the ground and toward the top of it.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. Dr. Bluestein is going to be very interesting. Right in there, it for a moment had a double ring structure, like sometimes we see in waterspouts. With now that outer ring has dissipated a little bit, but now becoming more again like an elephant's trunk. This often signifies that it's getting a little bit toward the end of the life cycle. The rain-cooled air has wrapped all the way around it, so we may, over the next few minutes, see this begin to get more and more contorted. But I'm surprised that it didn't do that a little bit earlier, and so this storm has a fair amount, this tornado, I should say, has a fair amount of resiliency to it against the rain that has been very close to it.
I look at the entire structure that surrounds this tornado, Dr. Forbes. I see huge updrafts, I see huge downdrafts, and a massive spiraling around the vortex itself. Can you kind of explain to our viewers the entire structure of what we're seeing here?
Yeah, this big ring that you see coming around here, and then it goes in behind, that is some of the rear flank downdraft. The rain-cooled air has wrapped now all the way around and then goes back in behind again. The tornado, it has managed to do that, and without killing the tornado, it has caused it to change its shape a little bit. It's gotten from a big wedge to a little bit more of an elephant's trunk shape here, back more like now what we saw when it was a little bit weaker when we first came on air. But that may be as a result of having a little bit cooler, heavier, denser air that the tornado now has to be pulling up, because tornadoes have updraft as well as rotating counterclockwise. And so we may be seeing a gradual weakening as a result of some cooler, heavier air being wrapped all the way around the tornado. Sometimes what will happen then, Mike, will be a family of tornadoes will form. So periodically somebody there keep looking up almost vertically because I believe that leading edge of that rain-wrapped air is getting out pretty close to you. Sometimes a new circulation will begin to form out in there. That one little tail that was just showing up there would be kind of an area, that one. Sometimes tornadoes could form here or perhaps there. We're trying to get another little low-hanging region.
Obviously, Dr. Forbes, this is ideal for Vortex 2. It has been 4 weeks in the making. They have been snake bitten by the atmosphere, but now today, with what appeared to be a fairly significant risk for Vortex 2, the biggest risk they've had so far, they have now got a classic supercell and tornado to sample. Tornado warning right now in Goshen County, Wyoming, a fairly unpopulated area, and you can see just a beautiful tornado as it moves its way. It almost looks now, Dr. Forbes, like it's moving almost due south. It looks like it's turned some.
Yeah.
It was coming toward us, and I guess the entire storm itself, but maybe the funnel that's touching the ground, may be moving leftward on your screen here.
Yes, it certainly is, because just a few minutes ago, probably literally 2 minutes ago, it was well to the right from our view of that farmstead, and now it is well to the left. So I think perhaps some of that rain-cooled air has wrapped around and is pushing it back south instead of east. You're exactly right.
Dr. Forbes, when I look at this, it looks like it's now tilting. The top portion of the tornado looks to be tilted toward us, which would be east-southeast, and then the funnel itself is then back toward the west or the northwest. So what does this indicate anything, the tilting of the tornado?
Yeah, it sure does. That's part of the overall evolution. That rain-cooled air that I've talked about has gotten in front of the tornado, and the tornado is resisting moving into that because that air is heavier and denser, and the tornado is making a turn. Part of the things that Dr. Fujita and I studied in the super outbreak back in 1974 was exactly this, how tornadoes would make turns in part of their life cycle, and we hypothesized at that point that it was in relation to rain-cooled air that was pushing it. In this case, it seems to be pushing it back a little bit to the south and west. And so this tornado may...
Now, Dr. Forbes, you can now, down toward the ground now, Dr. Forbes, you can now start to see, it's hard to tell if there's any debris within that or not, but you can now get a really good visual, the funnel and the ground, although it looks to me like it's getting very skinny and maybe more of a rope-like shape right toward the ground here, but you can definitely see the interaction with the funnel itself and the ground.
Yeah, it's definitely gotten very much rope-shaped. And there's no doubt that there is potentially damaging to destructive winds at the ground, and we're just hoping that there's nothing in its path to destroy. It certainly, even at this stage, even as it ropes out like this, can be a dangerous tornado. It's certainly wider aloft than it is at the ground, but very interesting. We've watched the whole evolution, Mike, from a funnel cloud to a narrow tornado to a wedge tornado. Look at that. You can see almost...
Dr. Forbes, you can look right inside the tornado. That is unbelievable. Look at that. You can look right into the top of it.
That is awesome, Mike, and you can see there the counterclockwise rotation. It has little rings. It's like smoke rings that are rising in the tornado itself. With that outer ring structure, and then
it almost looks, Dr. Forbes, like an outer funnel and an inner funnel. What exactly is going on here? That is beautiful.
Yeah, the lowest pressure is right at the center. That's where we're seeing that funnel. Then we're seeing little rings of debris out near the edge where the updraft is still the strongest, and we're getting almost like a double structure that we sometimes see in waterspouts. And this is kind of roping out as a almost waterspout appearance at this point. The waterspouts do that as rain pushes them a little bit off the vertical, makes them tilt, as you've been pointing out. But definitely, look at the rotation there, counterclockwise rotation in the sky, revolving about this tornado.
Dr. Forbes, I look at the top of the tornado here. I see horizontal spin, okay? So we're looking, spin that's parallel to the ground, but then I see also spin that is more like a corkscrew that's vertical as well. So we've got multiple spins in multiple directions here. This is really amazing to have this kind of vantage point this close.
Yeah, it has. Of course, part of the reason for that corkscrew is that the tornado, as you say, the upper portion is leaning so far forward toward you that from your perspective, it seems like there's some up and down motion within that. It's all sort of rotating, revolving right about the tornado, but it's almost gotten itself horizontal because the funnel itself now is being, here it's almost horizontal in this area. Here it's still vertical. Here it's almost turned horizontal. So it's spinning almost up and down at this point. It's amazing.
This is, again, live tornado that you're viewing here in Goshen County, Wyoming. Vortex 2 has been deployed on this storm for about 45 minutes now, sampling the data with this. We also have a tornado warning for Laramie County. It looks like the funnel itself likely to go east of the city of Cheyenne itself, but tornado warnings for Goshen County and for Laramie County. Obviously, we've got the visual on the tornado right now. We've been watching this evolve from a wedge-shaped structure to more of a rope-like structure as it goes more horizontal and tilts. When this initially formed, this is a large, almost perfectly vertical wedge-shaped tornado. Multiple funnels began to drop, and then came the large wedge tornado. But now you can see we've got more of a rope-like structure. Dr. Force has been analyzing this, and you can still see down toward the ground, we've still got the interaction with the ground, so we've still got a funnel on the ground, although I'm suspecting at some point here that is going to lift, Dr. Forbes. It looks like it's significantly weaker than it once was.
It is indeed much weaker, Mike, but I do believe you there, just as we panned in, that I saw a little bit of a dust cloud still at the ground there, so this is still capable of damage. It's also, as we've been talking about, I think there's still a little bit of dust being kicked up by this at the ground, so it's not done having winds at the surface. And off to the right and a little bit closer to you, there could be a new tornado that would develop.
Absolutely amazing. And now it's kinking, and basically there it goes, Dr. Forbes. It looks like it has completely dissipated. Wow, that was truly amazing. You've just witnessed the complete evolution and dissipation of a tornado, and now it looks like the center of the thunderstorm that created that tornado is now about to pass directly over top of us. A Vortex 2, actually, hold on a second. It looks like, I'm wondering now if we've got something still trying to hold on here, Dr. Forbes. Richard, can you see? It looks like a little dust cloud here. Dr. Forbes,
yeah.
This looks far removed, though, Dr. Forbes, from what we were watching earlier, though, but it still looks like we potentially could have a little bit of a dust cloud here at the surface.
There's something there. I'm not sure if that's the original, the remnants of the original, or if we have a little gustnado, a little low-level whirlwind that's on the gust front of the storm under the flanking line. But you're right, there's certainly something there.
Okay, now, Dr. Forbes, where the top of the tornado once was is directly in front of us right now. I can obviously see a lot of spin still to remain in this tornado, and you were saying if we get another one, it could be directly in this spot that's following us right now. Actually, you know what? I think we got to go. I think we got to go. I think this might be coming toward us and lowering. I think this might be a little bit too dangerous for it to be here. Let's everybody go. Let's everybody get in our cars. Let's go south. Dr. Forbes, when we look at this, actually, yeah, that's going to be big. We got to go. We got to go. That's coming right for us, Dr. Forbes.
Yeah, Mike, stay safe. Typically, Mike, as the one tornado dissipates, the next one will form typically about 4 or 5 miles off to the east. And so that would definitely put you in a place where it's a good time for you to be moving.
Okay, Dr. Forbes, when I look at this some more, I mean, it's very, very close to us. I don't see a funnel that has formed just yet, but I feel like we're a little bit too close for safety here. As far as where we would be concerned for winds or potential debris, I mean, obviously that's going to be right into the funnel. If we were to be close to hail, is that going to be on the north side of this storm? Because right now I don't see any precipitation or hail at all.
Yeah, it's going to be farther north. That's exactly right, Mike. It's amazing. When we began this series here, there was a tremendous amount of heavy rain and hail falling right behind the tornado. That has all disappeared, and so now if you just take a jog to your south, looks as if you can get out of that. Heading north, on the other hand, I anticipate that there's still quite a body. There it is. You see over to the north, there's still quite a body of rain and hail in there with this storm.
Okay, Dr. Forbes, I think what we're going to do here for all the crew safety is we're going to hop in the cars here real quick. We can still keep our cameras live. I can still talk to you, but for everyone's safety, everyone's in their cars. I think we're going to hop in right now and try to head farther south here. I'm going to shut the door here for Richard as he hops in the car here, and then we're going to head farther southbound. We're very close to what was the leading edge of the storm now as it pushes more east-southeast. Can you give us an estimation on the forward speed of the tornado, at least this part of the storm? It's not a tornado anymore.
Yeah, probably 25. Maybe this particular portion of the storm may be just a tad faster because you're getting close to where the gust front just south of the tornado is pushing forward. So perhaps 30, 35 miles per hour off toward the east. And as Mike has been pointing out, tornado warning for Goshen and Laramie counties in southeast Wyoming.
Dr. Forbes, when I look at what Vortex 2 is able to accomplish with something like this complete tornado genesis, how advantageous is the data that they are going to get to that they're trying to do and the ultimate outcome, which may be figuring out which storms produce tornadoes and which ones don't?
Well, this is going to be a spectacularly valuable data set for the Vortex 2 project. We talked a little bit earlier about how impressed I was that a big wedge tornado could form like that with the rain curtain and hail curtain right behind the wall cloud. That made it a high precipitation supercell. Those are supposed to have less chance of producing a tornado than ones where the rain had been mostly staying off to the north. And so that would be a classic supercell. So this one, the stick net measurements of temperature, any weather balloons that they send up into this will be able to get temperature measurements and be able to understand how this could happen. And of course, the Doppler and the multiple Doppler velocity measurements that are obtained out of this will be able to document the entire tornado evolution, the entire evolution from non-tornado to tornado and now to dissipation. A spectacular data set. You could, as long as everything is working the way it's designed, you could not have asked for a better data set than this case, as far as I can tell from what you've been showing us.
When we watched this storm cell initially develop north of Cheyenne, it looked to be kind of your run-of-the-mill thunderstorm, broke into 3 distinct sections, and then the southern storm actually really blossomed, Dr. Forbes, became a right turner, and you'll hear that term a lot with the researchers here with Vortex 2. They're always looking for a right turner. Why is that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. The storms, to some extent, and the analogy is not perfect, but to some extent the storms act like baseballs. And the ones that develop a very strong counterclockwise rotation have a tendency to move to the right. And so, exactly as you said, the storms split. The ordinary storms that didn't have rotation went off toward the northeast. The storm that developed the tornado had strong rotation. It curved like a curveball would do. It turned off to the right in this case and developed a very strong rotation, developed a big wedge tornado, went through the entire tornado evolution from a funnel cloud to a narrow tornado, a big wedge tornado, then to a elephant's trunk tornado, and then finally a rope tornado that just tore itself apart, dry air working into it and ripped itself apart.
Dr. Forbes, as we stop here, I can actually physically feel that it's significantly colder than it was just a little bit ago. Richard, careful with your step there. It's a little steep here. And I can also tell that the winds have picked up just a little bit now that we've moved ourselves just a little bit farther south. And as we look at the storm itself, it does not look nearly as impressive as it did, I'll say maybe just after the tornado itself formed. When you look at the cloud structure that you see right now, is there anything in this to you that would indicate we could see another funnel form?
Well, if it did, I would be keeping an eye on this area. There seems to be a little bit of sunny skies here and some rain in behind that. I think there's some updraft coming in here. We have, as you say, the rain cooled outflow. The gust front has passed through, but there's still some ascent taking place there. Could be a little land spot, water spot-like tornado or gustnado perhaps could form under this little protrusion or somewhere nearby. I think probably off to the right here, we may, of this location, we may have the chance of yet another cycling of what happens sometimes in supercell thunderstorms, that we will get new rotating updrafts form. This one seemed to have its rotating updraft completely undercut by some rain-cooled air, and that choked off the tornado. But sometimes they will reform a little bit off farther to the east.
This is obviously a very, very impressive supercell thunderstorm that has produced multiple funnels, one large wedge tornado at its onset, and then it became more of a rope structure as it tilted out. What we're looking at now are kind of the remnants post-tornado of the tornado in Goshen County, Wyoming. This is the first tornado that Vortex 2 has been able to sample. The area that we're focused on right now and the possibilities of another tornado are certainly there, as the storm is very, very close to our vantage point right now. There is zero precipitation at this point, although I see potentially some lighter rain shafts developing on the north side of this storm. The area here that's protruding from the cloud base itself looks to be, Dr. Forbes, the area that may potentially produce the tornado.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. There seems to be a little bit of a corkscrewing motion with these clouds going in upward and left. These clouds going in a little bit upward and to the right. So I think there's a little bit of a rotation in that. Exactly, there's definitely some upward motion that's taking place in that area.
I think actually, Dr. Forbes, we are going to, I think we're going to get back in the cars again, because now I look at the entire structure of it. We've got rotation in the large area up into the cloud base itself, and I'm wondering now if we might be in a little bit of danger with some winds here. So I think we're going to have to get in the car here. Again, our cameras will still be live. I'll still be able to talk to you, but analyze, if you can, almost what we're seeing directly overhead here.
It looks like this is the area of the flanking line. There may in fact be a new storm that's developing on the flanking line that tends to occur just to the south of the main storm, and on the gust front, the outflow from the original storm. And definitely, as Mike got into the truck there, you could see some very strong rotation. I think mostly what we're seeing here is air that's being lifted up. In behind in the screen is rain-cooled air that's pushing forward as a small front that's called a gust front, and lifting air, the warmer air.
Okay, Dr. Forbes, I want you to look over here to the north. I want you to look over here to the north. Take a look what's happening here. It looks like we've got now the possibility of some significant tight spiraling right in here, and I wonder if now we're looking at the beginnings of some tornado genesis right here.
Yeah, I noticed that. That certainly seems to be, I think this is the area here that I was mentioning, where there's definitely some rotation as you were getting into the truck. You can see some of these little wisps.
Dr. Forbes, when we talk about hurricanes, we talk about the stadium effect. It almost looks like we've got that with this tornado.
Yeah, it certainly does look that way. You can definitely see that swirling taking place there. So there's definitely some rotation, some broad rotation. Yeah, you're seeing the center, a donut hole here of some rotation aloft.
Oh, amazing. I think we've got a funnel now, Dr. Forbes. I'm not sure that we're going to actually see this come down to the ground yet or not, but impressive spiraling here of the atmosphere as we look northbound on a storm in Goshen County, Wyoming. We've already had one tornado form, lasted roughly 25 minutes, initially started out as a large wedge, roped out and became more horizontal, but still we've got a lot of spin here. And analyzing this area, and now I watch another area, Dr. Forbes. It's amazing, the spin is everywhere, and still watching this low-hanging protrusion that's got spin in it as well. Could we, I mean, I can't tell exactly, but could we be looking at the possibility of two different funnels trying to form here?
Yeah, I think so. You're down on the gust front that's a little bit south, I think, of where the main body of the storm is. And certainly that is a location where sometimes tornadoes will form in the shifting winds along there, either simultaneously with the big tornado that was under the wall cloud or after that. So definitely, you're right at the edge of a cloud shield there, as that painting of the photo just showed.
Dr. Forbes, as I look then back off to the east, you can see the dark cloud, the anvil blow off. That is significant. That'll extend for a very long way. When you look at the tops of the clouds and how far those extend and the base of the cloud that's kind of left behind, is the top end of the storm moving significantly faster than the bottom end of the storm near the ground?
Yes, just before we got the tornado, I had looked at that, and the anvil of the storm was 50 miles farther east than the wall cloud, the place where the tornado developed. So there is that shear today that allows the clouds to move differently at high levels aloft than at low levels, pushing the anvil farther out. And of course, that's why we have the supercell today. It is the arrival of those stronger mid-level winds and that vertical shear that has allowed this storm to have be a supercell and have a tornado.
All right, we are bringing you a one-of-a-kind vantage point round directly overhead. We've got the spin, a little bit of lowering. I gotta tell you, that is scary. Look at this. You may never ever see this again, folks. This kind of vantage point of some spin of a supercell directly overhead as the entire storm itself moves southeast. That is impressive. Yes, Mike, and the National Weather Service has put out a new tornado warning for western Banner, southeast Goshen, extreme northeast Laramie County, southeast Wyoming. They continue to track with the Doppler radar a dangerous thunderstorm that has produced a confirmed tornado, as we've been seeing. Dr. Forbes, what's amazing to me, though, is this is almost right over top of us at the surface. The winds aren't any more than 10 miles an hour. Yeah, you sometimes hear the expression. I think one of the viewers asked the other night about the calm before the storm. I think you're mostly in an area that's updraft now, and so you've gotten in between the outflow, and you've gotten out of sometimes what is a little jet area that's feeding into the storm, and so you're kind of in the area that's mostly just getting squeezed and going upward, and so it's a little bit of a calm before the storm type of area. That is simply amazing. It is so close to the ground, Dr. Forbes, you almost feel like you could just reach up and touch it, and hardly any rain at all. Just a few spits of rain, that is it. And this really looks like the back edge of the storm now, as the entire system now pushes off more to our east. Although now I start to see more flow in, Dr. Forbes, from the east as that storm moves east. So it looks like we've got converging air a little bit right in this area right here. And now I feel the winds pick up significantly. Yeah, and I can hear it in your mic that the winds have picked up. What direction do you think those winds are from, Mike? I'm sorry, say again? I can hear it, the wind in your mic. What direction do you think the winds that you're getting are from? Right now the winds are from the, I would say, northwest are our winds right now at our vantage point, and we are looking basically due north. Yeah, so you've gotten into the gust front has just passed, and you're getting that deck of clouds that is being lifted up right over top of that gust front. And it's kind of what we tell the viewers, that the gusty winds occur right at the leading edge of water shelf clouds. Now this is not the shelf cloud that is usually associated with a squall line. This is the rear flank downdraft, but it's the same kind of thing. The strong winds occur right under the edge of that band. What has been amazing is that we have witnessed multiple areas of tight spin within this supercell, Dr. Forbes. We saw one that came down to be a tornado, but I think in a lot of our minds, one supercell has one rotation, one tornado, and that is it. But I have witnessed at least half a dozen different tight spirals within in this supercell itself. Yeah, this storm is occurring in an environment with lots of change of wind with height, and so every place where it finds a little bit of a pocket of updraft, it can begin to tilt that those horizontal rolling motions of the atmosphere up into vertical. And so every time it forms a little bit of a pocket of updraft, it gets a new little pocket of spin, maybe one of those going right about there. truly amazing as we witnessed the entire life cycle of a tornado here in Goshen County, Wyoming, as a supercell thunderstorm produced a tornado that was on the ground for roughly 25 minutes and then roped out and dissipated. Now we're on the back edge of the storm, and basically the heart of the storm has passed us by now. And Dr. Forbes, at one point, it did take a right turn, and it was heading more southeast than east, but as I look at it now, I'm not sure that it's heading more east than south at this point.
Yeah, I think it's heading due east. Mike, give us a little bit of a recap now of how the weather that you're feeling has changed in terms of the temperature and how
yeah,
the winds
absolutely.
changed.
You know, pre-storm, Dr. Forbes, we had hardly any wind. We had a vantage point of several miles off to our northwest. We had a huge vantage point of the supercell, lowering wall cloud, and that is where we saw the tornado form. It was very warm, it was very calm. We could witness the hail shafts, the rain shaft, and the tornado itself. Now things have significantly changed. Now we've got a little bit of rain coming our way. Now we've got a strong northwest wind that's coming our way as the entire storm has passed us by. Now we're basically on the back edge of it, and you can see the entire thing is blown off to our east right now, and it seems like now we don't have nearly as much rotation in this part of the storm as we had right in the heart of it and pre-storm, Dr. Forbes. So I'm interested to see, because the stick nets were on this road deploying in a north-south fashion every 2 miles. You were talking about the temperature data, how key that could be. Physically, I can feel how much colder it has gotten, and that is a cold driving rain that is hitting us right now.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Mike. So I think for a while there the downdraft wasn't so cold, but obviously now it's getting pretty cold, and at that point I think it choked off the tornado. So that being one of the key questions that Vortex 2 wanted to answer was, how did temperature of the downdraft and that outflowing air, how would that affect the ability or inability?
Oh, that Dr. Forbes, wow, this rain feels just like hurricane wind-driven rain. And these are obviously the most significant winds that we've seen. What causes the supercell winds on the backside to be the strongest?
Yeah, in this area, there's your rear flank downdraft in action, Mike. That rain-cooled air is wrapped all the way around the west side and now to the south side, and now it's coming east toward you. You're in the outflow that has come down around on that rear flank of the storm.
Very good, Dr. Forbes. We've got another vantage point of you. We've got a live streaming camera with our embedded journalist, Katie Turr, and you're witnessing hail within this as well. As far as hail size, Dr. Forbes, what can determine hail size? And just like that, our rain is gone.
Well, the hail size, how big hail can get, is largely determined by how intense the thunderstorm updrafts are, because the hail is sort of levitated aloft. It's suspended there by the updraft, just joggling around, adding new growth layers on top of it until it gets so big it falls out. So the stronger the updraft of the storm, the bigger the hail. And certainly we've seen the record is about 7-inch diameter kind of hail. And I haven't seen, Jess, have we had any hail reports from this storm? Earlier I had seen, before we came on air here, I had seen some 1-inch hail had been reported in the early stages of the storm.
Right. Dr. Forbes, when we watched the tornado itself form, and especially on the north side, that is where we saw what we thought were probably some of the most intense downdrafts within that hail, because we need the strong updrafts to support it, and then it comes down in those downdrafts on the north side. Can you kind of explain or diagram for us, the tornado itself seemed to be on the south side of the supercell. Is that a fairly classic location for the tornado and the hook echo to form?
Yeah, the tornado tends to form on the southwest side of the supercell. Can we have a look at a radar perhaps in my screen so I can point out to the viewers? It's in a hook, and this storm does still appear to have this supercell character to it. The tornado does form on the southwest flanks. There we go. And you see still a little appendage coming down out of the southwest corner of the storm. That's where the rain-cooled air wraps around here. And this little notch warm air is still trying to go in. Now, at the moment, that inflow is off to your north. We may be seeing a possibility of the storm trying to recycle with yet a new tornado forming as it now appears to be moving, about ready to move into Banner County in Nebraska, having moved out of Wyoming, about ready, the rotating part of the storm, about ready to move into Nebraska.
We watched this from multiple vantage points, Dr. Forbes, on the radar when we were over in Banner County, Nebraska. We saw a storm flare north of Cheyenne. At the time it started developing, and probably for the first half hour to 45 minutes of its life, it did not look that impressive on radar. How can you determine on radar itself what kind of storm is going to develop a tornado, or can you, or is that the purpose of Vortex 2?
Well, that's a big purpose of Vortex 2. That I was watching the storm. It very quickly, just in a matter of within 10 or 15 minutes, developed, though, that kind of appendage that I was showing, indicating that it had developed a strong rotation. And then, literally in the 5 minutes as we came on air here, it developed a very well-defined hook echo with that. So it very quickly, within a period of 15 to 20 minutes, went, as you say, from not having apparently any rotation to one that had very strong rotation within it. It developed that hook echo, a fish hook, a little curl on the southwest side.
Again, to review for everyone what we've witnessed here in the past hour in Goshen County, Wyoming, deployed with Vortex 2, we witnessed the complete life cycle of a tornado as a storm cell off to the north of Cheyenne was a right turner and came right towards us and became a very large wedge tornado on the ground for roughly 20 to 25 minutes, and then it began to rope out, became more horizontal as the top of the tornado and the base of the tornado became very separated, and then the storm now has pushed off. We have not witnessed another tornado since. What we have witnessed are significantly cooler temperatures and a lot more rain now than we had pre-tornado. When the tornado was coming towards us, we had zero precipitation. We didn't even have any hail pre-storm. But then again, our vantage point was more or less from the southeast, and the tornado came directly towards us. You're more likely to see the hail shafts on the north side of the storm. Stick net teams have deployed their entire stick net probe devices. There are 24 of them. The road that we're on right here, folks, is a north-south facing road. So what they did is they deployed them at 2-mile spacing, and then the entire complex comes right over the stick nets. No tornado came over the stick nets themselves. The tornado actually lifted before it got here. That's not necessarily a bad thing, because what they can still measure are winds, precipitation, humidity, and what may be really key in determining how tornadoes form and dissipate is temperature. And so the radars have been deployed, the stick nets, the mesonets, and the probes have all been deployed, as well as photogrammetry. What they'll do now is take photographic and video evidence of the tornado. Dr. Forbes, you've been with us this entire time. One thing I want to ask you about is what happens after this now, because there are storm surveyors here. Your colleague, Dr. Wakimoto, is part of the survey crew. Is there anything that he can find post-tornado that will help him analyze this tornado? Because it doesn't look to me like there was any structural damage. Can he determine anything from, say, ground scour or crop damage?
Well, yes, sometimes you can, and they also have the capability, they have the resources that they can rent, say, some type of a small aircraft and go up and look from the air, and sometimes you can indeed find converging patterns in the crop fields there that will indicate where the tornado was. Sometimes you may find little looping patterns in the crop pattern that may suggest that there may have been hidden inside that big tornado some embedded funnel clouds. So yes, indeed, I expect that they will be doing some aerial overflights to see if there was some embedded substructure, suction vortices as they're called, the little mini tornadoes revolving about the parent tornado.
Again, Vortex 2 has been on the road for roughly 4 weeks, have not seen a tornado so far, and today they pretty much hit the jackpot. A complete formation and dissipation of a tornado from start to finish. They got on it early, deployed every piece of equipment that they have, and a perfect tornado to sample. Absolutely ideal. Open farmland, unpopulated area, perfect view. You can see for miles, an obvious advantage to the flat terrain and more of an elevated prospect on some of the roadways as well. Certainly from our vantage point, we could see the tornado from miles away, and then it dissipated as it came towards us as it moved more or less southeast or east-southeast on the ground for roughly 20 or 25 minutes. Now, Dr. Forbes, when they go post-analysis on this data and they combine 10 different radars, that in itself has got to be some of the most valuable data that has ever been sampled on a tornado.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. They can take the wind from the radars, pointing at it at different directions, and use that to get the full horizontal and vertical wind fields, the updrafts within the storm. They have multiple radars. Some of them are going to get the tornado structure. They have several Doppler radars that can measure very, very fine scales. They have some of the radars that can measure debris versus hail versus raindrops and different sizes of raindrops, and can measure that within the storm and relate that to the rear flank downdraft and perhaps why it was warm or cool or lukewarm. And so just a tremendous data set here, combining that data with balloon data that they send up, the stick nets, the pods, a tremendous data set. That's why they have such an armada of vehicles, because they want to get all types of measurements, the comprehensive data set that no previous experiment has been able to get. And that comprehensive data set allows you to answer lots of questions about tornadoes and how they form.
If I look post-storm, Dr. Forbes, if I look back to the west or the northwest here, you can almost now see clearing in the skies. We've got wind, but appears now much cooler air. We've got the wind in behind and a much more stable atmosphere in behind the storm itself.
Yes, indeed. The storm has passed now, and you're in the rain-cooled dome of air in behind it, and so indeed it's probably heading off toward your east or your east-northeast at this point.
Dr. Forbes, when you analyze this currently on radar, do you anticipate there being any re-strengthening of this storm? Could there be the possibility of yet another tornado?
Yeah, it certainly looks like there could. Can we go to our 3D radar or one of our radars, and we'll take a look at it? A few minutes ago we took a look at it. It certainly did have still had an appendage coming out the southwest side. It still looked pretty impressive. It was still a supercell thunderstorm from radar vantage point, and so we are still having the possibilities of this storm produce another tornado. There still is a tornado warning in effect for another half hour, for especially for and maybe some new warnings that have come out. We have a tornado warning now for Sheridan County, Box Butte County in Nebraska. These are both in Nebraska, and still for Banner County in Nebraska. So still the possibility of this moving, this tornado, this storm producing additional tornadoes as it heads eastward.
Dr. Forbes, I want you to look at one more thing here. I look off behind me here, and what looks to be, I mean, can you tell by, and it looks like it's dissipated somewhat, can you tell by the color of shafts that fall down from the clouds what it actually is? Because I see some bright white, what looks to be me now, hail shafts. It may be the sun angle, but can you tell by color if it contains hail or if it contains rain?
It's a little bit difficult to tell. Sometimes if it's very, very bright white with the sun shining on it, that will be some hail. But I couldn't tell from the view there with absolute certainty.
Yeah, it looks like it could be very difficult. Maybe a little bit down closer to the ground where you see the green grass here. I can see from my vantage point a little bit more white. To me, that looks like it could be a little bit more hail, although as this passed by us, we didn't feel any hail at all. Everything that we saw once this came by was all rain. So we're now in some much more stable air, we're in some much colder air, windier air. So at this point, now the storm has passed, we wouldn't expect any more severe weather to come our way. But you have truly witnessed something remarkable here live on the Weather Channel, a complete formation and dissipation of a tornado. Initially started out as a large supercell thunderstorm, a right turner in Goshen County, Wyoming. As it came towards us, what you ended up seeing were multiple funnels dropping down and then lifting again 3 separate times until ultimately we had one large wedge tornado on the ground for roughly 25 minutes. Toward the end of the life cycle of that tornado, what we ended up seeing was more of a horizontal tilt to it, where the base of the tornado and the top of the tornado were completely removed from each other. It was not completely vertical like we saw with the Wedge tornado, and then it dissipated. Again, on the ground for about 25 minutes before lifting. Tornado warnings have been issued for multiple counties, including Goshen County, Wyoming, and for Laramie County, Wyoming. The tornado passing significantly east of Cheyenne, so there was no immediate danger for the residents of Cheyenne. And you can see the area where we are, is completely wide open range and farmland, a completely unpopulated area, absolutely perfect sampling for Vortex 2. They've completely deployed on this, and some of the most valuable data that may ever be collected on a tornado was done tonight within the last hour with 10 different mobile Doppler radars and ground deployments and mobile deployments. Truly remarkable what has happened this evening. Obviously, I'm almost speechless as to what we saw. Our vantage point was absolutely ideal. The storm was at times rain-wrapped, but for most of the life of that tornado, we could see it perfectly clear without any obstruction of rain, without any obstruction of hail, as it moved slowly towards us. It was not a fast mover, and again, that's one of the ideal things for Vortex 2. They're looking for wide open space and a slow moving tornado. The slower it moves, the better data sampling they can get, Dr. Forbes, and I've got to say, I'm sure they are ecstatic right now with the data they've collected.
Well, Mike, I think it's safe to say the long wait for Vortex 2 is over. It's a tremendous success today.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you on that, Dr. Forbes. This has been truly remarkable, what we've witnessed. And now I look around me and I see some sunshine off to the west. The wind has dissipated quite a bit, and again, when you look at the open range here, it was off to our west here, which is where the tornado formed. It was exactly this location where we watched it push its way eastbound. Now, with that tornado, there are a lot of high-tension power lines. Not one single time did we see any flash of electricity. So I'm estimating at this point, Dr. Forbes, I'm guessing it really didn't even hit anything. We didn't see any large pieces of debris. We didn't see any power flashes. I've got to say, a win-win for everybody here. For at least
we may have lost Mike's audio. So certainly, indeed, a win-win situation. As he was saying, for Vortex 2 as well as for the people, is because we watched the entire life cycle of the tornado. We never saw anything that looked like terrible debris that this had caused some kind of destruction. No power line flashes in the area that he was in. So it seems to be the tornado did its thing in the best possible location in terms of the public safety as well.
All right, Dr. Forbes and Mike Bettis giving us live analysis of a tornado on air, caught on tape, intercepted here on the Weather Channel. We are going to have continuing coverage as Mike Bettis continues to hunt. The hunt is not over as we head on into the evening hours. If you have questions, Twitter, Facebook, email us. We have more questions. Dr. Forbes will analyze what we have seen. Again, there's a live picture of Mike Bettis. That is his producer. This is what we saw earlier today, the total life cycle of a tornado. You are looking at the beginnings when a touchdown. That's Dr. Forbes analyzing it a little bit earlier. So, what did we see? What did we just experience? Did we learn anything new? We're going to answer all of these questions here. We're going to take a very quick break. We'll be right back. Stick with us.
Canopy Egyptian cotton sheets are designed to get softer every time you wash them. And Canopy comforters don't have to be dry cleaned, which makes your bed easier to sleep in and that much harder to leave. Canopy Home Furnishings, available at Walmart. Save money, live better. Walmart.
Whether it's a picket fence or a bedroom wall, a fresh coat of paint can make anything feel new. At Ace, we make painting easier, with expert tips and techniques to help you get the results you're looking for. Picking the perfect color, having all the tools and supplies you'll need, we keep it simple, so you can enjoy the satisfaction of making a big difference for a small price. Ace, the helpful place.
OnStar presents Extreme weather tips.
This is the OnStar Command Center. We're monitoring weather conditions and providing that information to our customers in need of crisis assistance.
Hurricanes are some of nature's deadliest storms. Here's how you can be prepared.
Cover all of your home's windows with plywood.
Have an emergency kit ready.
That would include a flashlight, raincoat, small radio.
If you have a car, keep your gas tank full.
Listen to the warnings of your city, state, or county.
Make sure your family knows where to meet.
Outside of your immediate neighborhood.
Make sure you have an emergency route as part of your hurricane evacuation plan.
If you're driving and you see downed power lines, you should absolutely avoid them. You could press your OnStar button and report those power lines so that the authorities could come and properly take care of them.
The single most important tip that we can provide is to be prepared.
This extreme weather tip was brought to you by OnStar. For more information, go to onstar.com.
Are you prepared?
Hi, may I help you?
Yeah, I'm looking for car insurance that isn't going to break the bank.
You're in the right place. Only Progressive gives you the option to name your price. Here.
A price gun?
Mm-hmm.
So I tell you what I want to pay.
And we build you a policy to fit your budget.
That's cool. Feel so empowered.
Power to the people.
The option to name your price. New and only from Progressive. Call or click today.
Vortex 2, the great tornado hunt, and you can come along. Log on to weather.com/Vortex2 and follow Mike Bettis on the road. Chat with him on Facebook and get updates from Twitter. Vortex 2, on the web and on the air.
Hurricane season 2009, and the Weather Channel is the hurricane authority. Now, your local on the 8s.
Currently in our area, 67 degrees under fair skies. Here's our local Doppler radar. For tonight, skies clearing overnight, low 47, winds south-southeast at 10 to 20 miles per hour. And on Saturday, plentiful sunshine, high 73, winds southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. The week ahead.
It has been a wild hour here on the Weather Channel. The Vortex 2 team, the Great Tornado Hunt, had success today, intercepting a tornado. A touchdown 4:05 Mountain Time in Goshen County, Wyoming. That little arrow is our severe weather expert, our world-renowned tornado expert, Dr. Greg Forbes, analyzing Mike Bettis' live pictures that we aired on the network straight through for an hour, as well as on the internet. And you can continue to follow him, weather.com/Vortex2, if you do have to leave your television and head elsewhere. So what do you say we get back out live to Mike Bettis to talk more about his experience of this tornado intercept? It was long lasting. This was on the ground for about 25 minutes. According to Dr. Forbes, his analysis, it was about a quarter-mile wide. The supercell continues to make its way eastbound here. We do have multiple tornado watches. Let's head back out live to Mike Bettis. And Mike, what was your positioning with this system? Were you south of it and then it came through you? Describe the evolution and where you were located.
It was truly amazing, Stephanie. The storm was northwest of us, and we kept hearing on the scanners with the different teams, and especially heard Dr. Weiss say, we've got a right turner here. We're going to have to go farther south. And so we got ourselves on a north-south facing road and came farther south, and basically the tornado came right towards us. What was maybe lucky more than anything else is it lifted and dissipated before it got to us. We watched the complete life cycle of it. It was absolutely awesome. I think one of the pictures that I've got just burned into my memory right now is as it tilted more horizontal, you could actually look right down into it. Yeah. I mean, it was like, I describe it like a hollowed out eclair. I mean, you could just look right down into it. I've never in my life seen anything like it. And then once the tornado dissipated, you could still see spin in the cloud, and directly overhead as the clouds were lowering towards us, once again you could see this tight spiraling, but you could almost see right up into it like it was hollowed out. That to me was absolutely truly amazing. But watching these funnels drop, Stephanie, multiple times, 3 different times we watched funnels drop before finally we had one large wedge tornado on the ground for about 25 minutes or so until eventually roped out. And I'll show you now kind of post-tornado. We look off to our east, and that's what's left of the storm itself, Steph.
Mike, we're showing that image you were talking about, looking up into the tornado. This was remarkable. If you want to describe a little bit more what it was like when that was going overhead.
It was truly right overhead, and it was so close, and it was lower, and it felt like you could just reach up and touch it. And when you looked up, it was like it was almost to me, in a sense, like you were looking up into the eye of a hurricane where everything was clear. Now, we couldn't see up to the blue skies, but there was a hollowed out area, and I have never seen anything like that. The vantage point where we were, where it passed directly overhead, I mean, couldn't have been any more perfect. And to witness the tornado from a distance in an open field in an unpopulated area, Stephanie, I don't think that Vortex 2 could have planned this particular tornado anymore. I mean, they waited and waited for 4 weeks for this to happen. They've been shut out to this point, but now, I mean, really, they have hit the jackpot with this tornado.
Mike, how did you choose this area and this particular cell? Did you choose that cell, or you just happened to be lucky to be in the area?
Well, what happened is we decided that today we were going to follow along with the sticknet teams from Texas Tech. And as soon as they decided they wanted to go, they were watching the storms in Cheyenne. We were actually north of Cheyenne. We were over in Nebraska, believe it or not, watching them on radar. They said, okay, we've got to go. We've got to go north, and maybe at some point we've got to go west as well. So we went north a good distance. We traveled a good maybe 30 or 40 miles, stopped, watched the radar some more, and then west we went. Watch this thing then split. The large storm cell split almost into 3 and then 2, and the southern branch of that then became a right turner. Listen to Dr. Weiss on the scanner saying, we've got a right turner, we're going to have to deploy, we've got to go south. Followed another sticknet team as they were going south, and we actually, believe it or not, we got a little bit unlucky because they turned around and went back. We stopped and said, okay, you know what, we're kind of in an elevated position here. We can see a visual on the lowering wall cloud itself. Let's stop here and broadcast. And we just sat there and watched it, Stephanie, and then again multiple times funnels tried to drop, didn't have much success, and then eventually we got the large wedge, and the next thing you go, a perfect sampling, a perfect visual on a right turner in southeast Wyoming.
All right, Mike, we have a lot of viewer questions coming up. We'll answer those. We have to take a quick break, and we'll get back right to you. Adam?
Boy, was it an alarming day of news surrounding the Air France mystery. We have plenty of top stories to get to tonight. The Air France story, yeah, one step over a piece of equipment is the center of the controversy right now. And it's the first week of hurricane season, everybody. Something happened last night across the southeast that we're going to revisit. In fact, a couple days ago, that something was actually in the Gulf of Mexico. We're going to talk all about this coming up. This is what it looks like on radar right now. Where is this? This is Norfolk. This is Virginia, folks. Strong thunderstorms pushing right through the coastline. Some of these will be found across the southeast as well. We find that wet weather right into the northeast. Some travel delays there, but we do expect better weather as we push into the weekend. Lots coming up. We get you back to the tornado hunt as well.
I couldn't survive without advice from my go-to people. For the health of my mouth, I trust my dentist, who recommends Colgate Total.
Colgate Total actively fights germs for 12 hours.
That makes it an easy choice.
Colgate Total, #1 recommended most by dentists and hygienists.
Want a 4-star hotel at a 2-star price? Go to hotwire.com. When 4-star hotels have unsold rooms, they use Hotwire to fill them. So you get the lowest prices on 4-star hotels, guaranteed.
HOTWIRE. Cody Chevrolet's 29 minutes or less lube service makes it easy to fit an oil change into your busy day. All it takes is a half hour with no appointment necessary. And with free coffee, free Wi-Fi, and a place to work, you can even get some work done while you're waiting. We'll have you in and out in 29 minutes or less. Guaranteed, so you can get right back to it. Cody Chevrolet Cadillac and good wrench service on the Barry Montpelier Road.
Nothing beats the beauty and durability of stone. At Barry Tile, we create beautiful custom-cut countertops and tabletops. Come and choose your unique stone from among the finest in the world. We'll cut it and finish it to your specifications and then install it for you. Doesn't your home deserve the best? Call for an appointment to choose your stone. Barry Tile, custom stonework for the discriminating buyer on Route 14 in Barry.
Is Pet Pharmacy. Weekends on the Weather Channel. It's 2 nights of storm stories.
It was the most ungodly thing I'd ever seen in my life.
2 episodes, too intense to miss.
The tornado is right over us right now.
Saturday night at 8.
It happened so fast.
And Sunday night at 8.
Some of us in the crew couldn't swim. This could be it.
It's the worst of nature, the best of man.
I promised her we will be back.
Storm Stories, Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 on the Weather Channel.
Hurricane season 2009, and the Weather Channel is the hurricane authority. Now, you're local on the 8s.
Our local Doppler radar. For tonight, skies clearing overnight. Low 47. Winds south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And on Saturday, plentiful sunshine. High 73. Winds southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour.
We are in Goshen County, Wyoming, live with Vortex 2 as they have deployed on a supercell thunderstorm that's producing a tornado right now in open farmland in Goshen County, Wyoming. This is an ideal classic case that Vortex 2 has been looking for. They've deployed all of their radars, their probes, the stick nets, the mesonets are mobile, and they crisscross throughout this storm. It's a slow-moving classic storm that they're looking for because that was ideal for them. Low precipitation, especially on the south side, although we're now noticing a lot more in the way of rain, but the deployment should actually be perfect for them, certainly considering the topography that we're looking at here. Relatively flat and a visual that is miles. The radar signature is almost classic on this one. And so basically what you witnessed an hour ago right here on the Weather Channel was the complete life cycle of a tornado in southeastern Wyoming. If you look over my shoulder now live, you can see that the storm has moved on, maybe has weakened just a little bit, but at this point we have not seen another tornado drop from this supercell. Another vantage point with Vortex 2, who's with the Doppler radars. Our digital journalist Katie Turr with them the entire time. Katie, tell us exactly what you saw as this supercell evolved.
Well, we weren't with the Doppler radars at the time. We were actually with the W-band, the UMass W-band, and they're the smaller radar that gets right up as close as they can to the tornado. And let me tell you something, when that thing formed, we were extremely close to it. I kept asking the girl that runs it, Robin, are we in danger? Are we in danger? And she said, yes, we're in danger. We're going to give it 2 more minutes. We're going to give it 30 seconds, but then we have to get out of here. We felt some golf ball size hail, but right when it was forming, I got to tell you, as a layman, it was a spectacular sight. You could see it rotating just from your regular eyesight. You could see it rotating. And I got glasses. My eyes aren't that good. But you could totally see it turning right in front of you. And it got down. It came down a little bit. Then it went back up. And then it came down. And for me, it looked huge and quite frightening. But you could tell the excitement in Robin's voice in particular. She was just saying, wow, oh my God, this is spectacular. And it was I got to say, for me, it was a momentous moment, and for the guys that were in the car with me, it was really exciting. We went back down the road and went south a little bit, and when we went south, we stopped, and I got to say, the tornado was maybe a quarter mile from us. It was extremely close. I don't know, how close were you guys?
Our vantage point was probably several miles, but just a beautiful vantage point for us. And I'm sure, Katie, there's going to be a lot of high-fiving with the Doppler radar operators. This is truly an enormous storm for them to sample, a momentous occasion for Vortex 2. In the last hour, they have sampled a large wedge tornado. We'll have more for you coming up right here on Weather Set.